So now we're going to talk about the habitat, the biological interactions, and the adaptations of the porcu serpent, starting from the biome and the general environment. So the porcu serpent lives in tropical rainforest, which is an ideal environment for both the porcupine-like features of it and the snake-like features of it, right? Now, just an overview of what tropical rainforests look like or are. So they have dense vegetation and like several layers of plant life, complex plant life to create multi-layered, I guess, plants, right? Which in most cases, sunlight has a really difficult time getting through to the ground. So at ground level, it's usually dark. Then the canopy trees also contribute to the sunlight not getting down onto the ground because they're really tall, expansive trees with big leaves. Well, because of that, they just don't let sunlight just get through. There's no way. Then we have the ground level plants, right? Like the shrubs, ferns, vines, which is perfect for camouflage and in some cases insulation of nests and everything. And then on ground level we have like decomposing leaves, organic matter, and things like that. So that's just the general overview of tropical rainforests. Now we're going to talk about the climate, the weather patterns of tropical rainforests. Now, tropical rainforests are warm and humid almost year round. There is minimal seasonal variation, right? So annual range of temperature is about 20 degrees Celsius to 30 degrees Celsius, right? The warmth is pretty much the same year round, as I said. And rainfall, there are heavy rainfalls year round, almost every day. There is rain almost every day. And the annual amount of rainfall is about 2,000 to 5,000 millimeters, which in some cases it can exceed beyond this limit and get to 6,000, 7,000 millimeters. Another weather pattern about the humidity, right? It's so humid in there. The humidity is more than 80% almost all the time, which makes sense. It usually rains there almost every day, so it makes sense for it to be more than 80%. And there's no snow or no frost in there because it's located near the equator. There's it's always warm, so there's not gonna be any snow or frost just being there, right? And talking about daylight and nighttime, there's adequate amount of same amount of daylight and nighttime. You can say daytime and nighttime. There's 12 hours of daytime, 12 hours of nighttime usually, and it's because again it is located tropical rainforests that are located near the equator, and Earth's tilt is minimal there, so the sun is directly overhead at that place. So there's minimal uh, time, like daytime, nighttime variation.
Yeah.
Pretty
much the same.
12 hours each one.
Yeah.
Now we're going to talk about the habitat, where it lives. Like, does it live in a cave? Does it live on the ground? Where does it live? We're going to talk about that. Now, porcu serpent live in burrows, right? Now they either constructed themselves or they find already constructed burrows, like constructed by other burrow building animals, like armadillos, you can say, and animals like that.
Yeah.
And they prefer building burrows that are at the base of tall and strong canopy trees as a sense of protection and strong foundation, right? Now, there are rooms, there are like so many tunnels, different tunnels leading to different rooms and chambers in the burrows, which,
then those different compartments.
Exactly, yeah. Starting from the entrance. Now, the entrance is hidden or is camouflaged by ground level plants like the shrubs, like the ferns. It just hides it from predators. So that they don't detect it, they do no harm to the porcu serpent. Then we go to the tunnel systems, right? There are tunnels leading to different chambers and rooms, right? For example, the nest chamber, to the food storage chambers, and all that. So it's pretty long. And the height of the tunnels are usually 50 to 60 centimeters. It's just enough so that the porcu serpent can move through it swiftly, right? Then we have different rooms, as we said. There's nest chamber, which is a room located in the center and deep within the burrow. and it's insulated by decaying leaves and ferns, which creates insulation and comfort for developing eggs and juveniles. Right, it keeps humidity there, which is perfect for the leathery eggs and the scales of just newly born uh, pork servants.
Yeah.
And if you have storage chamber, there are few storage chambers around the barrel used for storing food. Now, if the prey is small, then it's eaten as a whole in the wild. But if it's big and takes time to be consumed in the wild, then it will be dragged back to the nest and stored in the storage chambers. Because if they eat it, they take a long time to eat it um, in the wild, then they expose themselves to the predators.
Yeah.
So it's just an adaptation, behavioral adaptation to bring it to the nest for more safety and storing it for a long time. Because the humid, cool environment keeps spoilage just out of conversation. Like it doesn't spoil the food in most cases. It just reduces the spoilage.
So that's also why the diameter of the burrows are so much bigger. Because they're able to bring the prey with them inside of it.
And the prey in some cases could be kind of like in height or in diameter be bigger than the porpoise serpent itself. So that's why.
Yeah.
Now there are also escape routes around the barrel. Makes sense. So in terms of like predator attack or environmental threats, they have several escape routes that they can just escape and keep themselves safe. Now there's like interactions with surroundings, right? As I said, there's vegetation, there's dense, thick greenery, like plant life around, right? There's prey availability. They feed on rodents, small herbivores, small carnivores like ocelots. People say, which is a perfect source of food for them. It's a moist environment, which is really good for their hydration and for the health of their scales, and also for their venom glands because they need to be hydrated to produce venom. Right, and again, the dense vegetation, right, and the color of the pork serpent, the dark green color of the pork serpent, usually avoids predators or just they can avoid predators, right? Because they can camouflage or stay undetected in most cases during like hiding or resting, things like that. Now we're going to talk about seasonal details, right? Now from March to year round, from March to November is called the wet season, right? There's peak rainfall from March to November, which in some cases it can lead to minor flooding. And because of that, usually the barrels of porpoise serpents are built at high elevation near the base of canopy trees. So they tend to choose a place that's high in elevation and is also near the base of tall, strong trees to avoid the wet season floods. And the dry season is from December to February, right? Rainfall decreases, but humidity stays relatively about the same, and the ground becomes less moist. So it's uh, there's not much water on the ground, so the porpoise serpent can move more easily around without getting stuck in the mud or things like that. Now, I'm sure that you have questions on why is the wet season from March to November. So usually March, November in the rest of the world is like summer, right? It's the hot season.
Summer, fall, spring. Yeah.
It's about that. Why is that? And same thing for the dry season. Why is winter is a dry season there? So from March to November, that people like at the northern hemisphere and southern hemisphere call summer, the sun is directly overhead and increases the amount of evaporation in tropical rainforests. Right. Okay. This creates heavy like rainfall clouds, which increases rainfall. Okay. That's what is peak rainfall. It's a lot of evaporation, a lot of clouds, a lot of rainfall. It all makes sense. Yeah. What about the dry season? Right. The temperature stays the same. However, the it's just the sun isn't completely overhead in that place, right? The ITCZ, or you can say intertropical convergence zone, shifts away from the equator, right? Which decreases the amount of rainfall and the conditions become drier, right? However, there is no real winter or like real summer in equator. It's just marked by wet season and dry season, right? It's just marked by how much it rains or just amount of rainfall indicates if it's a wet season or a dry season. That's just it. There's a bottom line to uh,
why it's like that.
Yeah, why it's like that.
Yeah.
It was a question for me when I
was researching for it.
Yeah, I was researching for it. Now, why should I think I talked about this. Quickly gonna go over it again. So why should the barrel ensure moisture retention? I said again, the skin and the scale of both the adult and juvenile pork serpents need hydration. Their venom glands need hydration. Okay, so if it's too dry there, it can lead to injuries and weaken defense and things like that. Again, the quill maintenance, they need hydration so that the quills don't become brittle and quickly fall off. Because quill regeneration needs a significant amount of energy.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that later. And they're ectotherms.
Yeah.
So a humid, warm environment is perfect for their bodily functions to perform efficiently, right? And things like that. Now, the countries around the world that have tropical rainforests there's a lot in different continents. For example, in South America, we have Brazil, we have Peru, Colombia, Ecuador. In Central America, we have Panama, Guatemala, Costa Rica. Africa, we have Cameroon, countries like that. In Asia, we have Thailand, India, Sri Lanka, or in the Oceania, the Fiji, or countries like that are tropical rainforests. So it is expected for pork serpent to live in these countries. To see them in these countries, it will be pretty common.
It's their environments that they would thrive in.
Yeah, you wouldn't be surprised if you see these animals here.
Okay.
Now, we're going to talk about biological interactions. Predation, competition, mutualism, parasitism, and commensalism.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that. First of all, let's talk about predation. Porcu serpent as a predator. So, as an apex predator in this environment, what does it do? So, they usually rely on or feed on small to medium-sized herbivores and carnivores. Right? That's what they do. So, the range of food or animals they feed on, for example, is armadillos. Right? They have a tough armor. However, their defensive mechanisms, their fangs, their tail. If you could show that actually. So the long, thick quill at the tip of the tail is perfect for penetrating through the armor. So they can just kill it, paralyze it, and kill it.
Yeah.
Source of food.
It contains like a neurotoxin on it that we will talk about later, but that's what would paralyze it.
Exactly. They feed on rodents like capybaras, rats, squirrels, animals like that. They also feed on ground-dwelling birds or air birds that is like in the air, like sparrows, doves, small parrots, toucans, birds like that. And also, as I said, like ocelots, small carnivores.
Yeah.
They feed on those too if they do find them. Like ocelots. Things like that. So they use camouflage and their ambush attacking strategy to they stay undetected, like in dense vegetation. And when it's the right time, they strike the prey with either their fangs, their head bite, or their tail bite, their tail strike. Sorry, the tail strike, and it will just paralyze them and eventually lead to their death.
Yeah,
and they eat it based on their size.
Yeah.
Now, as a prey, porcu serpent being a prey.
Yeah.
That's not interesting. So, just like any other animal, like they have predators, right? Certain animals are after them to hunt them. So, what are their main predators? The cats, like jaguars, leopards, tigers, right? These cats, or just wild cats, try to hunt the porcu serpent by targeting its vulnerable areas. Usually, the ventral side, the belly side. Usually, if you can, is that the top side of the porcu serpent is equipped with quills. However, the belly side is not.
The dorsal has the quills, and the ventral does not have.
So it's a vulnerable area that these cats can usually attack and eventually just hunt the porcu serpent. Right. Then we have harpy eagles. Harpy eagles, they usually use their strong talons to lift. They attack from behind, so they're out of sight of the porcu serpent. they use their strong talons, lift up the porcu serpent very quickly, yeah, like really high in the sky, and then just drop them onto a really hard surface, so they can die and then feed on. Yeah, right, makes sense. And then large snakes in the area, like anacondas and boas, they usually try and hunt porcupine serpents. Yeah. Um, Now it's difficult for them because the majority of porcupine serpent's body is equipped with quills. However, if they can catch them off guard by attacking the head quickly without like the porcupine serpent being able to even react, they can cause damage. Yeah. Eventually weaken them, slow them down, and then before you know it, porcupine serpent has been defeated. Yeah. Right. So this is the predation. Secondly, we're gonna talk about competition. Right. Now it competes with the porcupine serpent competes with other organisms for different resources, mainly the food, shelter, and space. Yeah. Now we're gonna talk about food competition first, right? Now the primary competitors of porcupine serpent in terms of food are small carnivores like ocelots and monitor lizards. Right? They usually hunt small mammals or small rodents. However, porcupine serpent is able to hunt them, right? Yeah. And turn into like direct predation if they get confronted. Large snakes, because large snakes, like I said, anacondas and boas, because they have similar snake-like characteristics. Yeah. They usually have a similar diet. Yeah. So they go for the same prey. Yeah. And birds of prey, like hawks and harpy eagles, though it's difficult, right? They might not like directly get face to face in competition, but these the hawks, the harpy eagles might go for small rodents. Yeah. Or the like birds, which no porcupine serpent also has a well shark hunter. Yeah. Yeah. So they might compete together, though it's rare. And the outcome is that the porcupine serpent is usually successful in the competition because they have the venomous strikes and the defensive quills to give an edge in the confrontations with the predators, right? Larger carnivores, when it comes like against the cats and everything, right? It might be difficult, right? Direct competition, it might just like they may avoid direct competition by just targeting different prey, yeah, right, for their own safety. Now, shelter competition, right? So it's usually animals that live in burrows. Yeah. Right? It should be that. So burrowing animals such as armadillos or anteaters will compete with the porcupine serpent for the same place, and ground-dwelling insects like ants and termites. Termites, yeah. Yeah, but the thing here is that the outcome of this competition is that almost always the porcupine serpent is successful because of its size and its offensive mechanisms, right? Okay. The fangs, the tail, the quills, right? They're usually successful. However, when it comes to insects, infestation can cause the porcupine serpent to relocate and go to another place because it would be difficult to find the immense amount of insect around the house, around its nest. Yeah. Next, we have parasitism, right? That faces problems like associating ectoparasites and endoparasites, so external and internal parasites. But external parasites, ticks and mites, usually attach onto the back of the porcupine serpent and feed on its blood, or leeches that are mostly found in humid environments, like tropical rainforests. Makes sense. Yeah. They again attach onto the body of the porcupine serpent, usually onto the vulnerable side too. The stomach area. Exactly. Yeah. Just move with them, feed on them, feed on the blood. That's that. Then we have endoparasites, that internal parasites. We have like worms, like nematodes, like internal worms can infect the porcupine serpent, and these worms are transmitted through like feeding on infected prey. They usually just get transmitted. And we have protozoans, the blood parasites. They're either vector-borne, waterborne, or foodborne. So mosquito bites can transmit them. Dirty food and dirty water can also transmit these blood parasites, and they weaken the porcupine serpent, weaken the defense, and eventually through energy depletion, it becomes weaker and weaker until it can't really defend itself and gets hunted by other predators. Yeah. Usually. as well. Next, we have mutualism, positive relationship between both parties. You can say. So first of all, we have the bird and cleaning the quills. So those birds that clean, oh, in this case they clean the quills. But have you seen those birds? For example, crocodiles. They clean the debris off the
the teeth of them.
yeah. In this case, the birds clean the quill off of debris in here. So birds such as like oxpeckers and finches, they clean the back of the porcupine serpent, the debris left in the quills, and feed on it. They feed on the parasites, the external parasites such as the leeches we talked about, ticks and mice. They feed on it, which is kind of ensures the safety and the health of the porcupine serpent. So it's a source of food for the birds, and also it's the safety of the porcupine serpents. And secondly, the next mutualistic relationship is the fungi and the barrow. Now, how is that? So the fungi, in the barrow in the nest, the porcupine serpents leave just organic material around, like feces and just things like that. They leave it around. No, the fungi grow in the nest and break down the organic matter, the organic molecule. So they kind of clean up the nest. So the mutualistic relationship here is that the nest of porcupine serpents are clean, and for fungi, they have a source of food, and they also have a safe place to live without getting, fed on by herbivores.
And then just like good environment for them.
Exactly. Lastly, we have commensalism. So one party gets a benefit, the other one
neutral.
Yeah. It's there of no benefit. And in our case, it's a seed dispersal of plants. So as the porcupine serpent moves through the dense vegetation of the tropical rainforest, fruits and seeds tend to get stuck between the quills, right? It's densely arranged along its back. So it would be common for seeds and fruits to just get stuck in there. As they move around, right, the seeds may get dropped off somewhere else. So it contributes and enhances the reproductive success of plants in the area. Right? There's no benefit to the porcupine serpent. However, the plants, they have reproductive success. They won't eventually go extinct. So that's that. Now, as I said, jaguars or like the cats attack what's it called? The underbelly?
Yes,
the ventral. The vulnerable side. The vulnerable side. Things like that. So these are the biological interactions. Now we're going to talk about adaptations of the porcupine serpent. Physical, structural, physiological, and behavioral adaptations of it that help it live better in this environment. We're going to start with the structural adaptations. First of all, we have the defensive quills. Right? Makes sense. So they have long, sharp quills that are made up of keratin. Right? They're hollow, but they're really long and they're really sharp. They're made of keratin, and again, as shown here, it starts from the beginning of the body or the neck all the way to the tail. And they're used for defense. Right? If someone attacks it, then there's gonna be like long quills stuck in their body. Right? And the thick, long quill that's found at the tip of the tail. Defensive mechanism, it can inject venom into the prey if they do attack it, or if it wants to attack the prey or hunt the prey. Incapacitate it, paralyze it, eventually dies. That makes sense. So that's the defensive quills, right? So these quills are controlled by like back and tail muscles, which contributes to its movement, how easily they can move the tail or move the quills.
We'll go again more into depth later on how that works.
And the survival advantage with that is that these structures provide the porcupine serpent with a defensive mechanism that gives it advantage to avoid the predators. Right. Next, we have the venomous fangs. Right. Here. Now, the fangs of the porcupine serpent are incisor modified teeth. Right. So the incisor teeth of porcupines and the fangs of the snake are modified to there. So if you've ever seen porcupines have a set of incisor teeth at the top jaw, so at the top and at the bottom. So it's the same concept here. So there's two fangs at the top and two fangs at the
Yeah, you can see the bottom ones are really close.
Yeah. So that's the thing. That's the thing. So usually in snakes or in king cobras, there's only fangs at the top, not the bottom, right? With the incisor modified fangs, there's fangs at the both like the top and the bottom.
Yeah,
of
the bottom
jaw.
ones are close.
And they're closer because incisor teeth of porcupines ones are pretty much connected to one another.
Yeah.
Right. So the fangs of the king cobra are able to deliver neurotoxic venom.
Yeah.
Right. To the prey. Now these fangs are located, as I said, the both places of like the top jaw and the bottom jaw. The survival advantage is that they just can hunt and defend themselves more efficiently, much more efficiently, because once the prey or the predator is injected with this neurotoxin, they cannot move pretty much.
Yeah.
They're so painful and they affect the circulatory and the nervous system.
Yeah.
Immediately causes paralysis.
Yeah. Like in like a very short amount of time. Yeah. Their prey would stop.
Exactly. Now we have the flexible and venomous tail, as we talked about. Now, ends in a venomous tip. I talked about it several times, right?
Yeah.
So the tail is composed of like flexible vertebrae. They're really flexible and they turn into S-shaped. Like the entire body can turn into S-shaped like curvatures. Then the function, as I said, both used in defense and both in hunting, right? We talked about it. The survival advantage is that they can defend themselves against large predators. That's the important part.
Yeah.
In defense, it can be used in large predators because it's really quick, lightning speed, and it's really precise.
Yeah.
And it's really intimidating because it can stand up and then immediately hit. And in hunting, it is used for small prey.
Yeah.
Because just it's precise. It can hit and it's thick. It can get through armor. For example, armadillos or turtles, mid-lifters, it can get through the armor pretty easily.
Yeah, and the thing about the tail is that it's also good for defending, but it also only attacks small prey just because it doesn't deliver the same amount of toxin compared to the teeth. So usually the teeth are kind of like a backup. And again, we'll go into more depth.
Next one, we'll talk about physiological adaptations. So the venomous gland reproduction, there are venom glands at the head to provide venom for the fangs.
Yes.
Also, venom gland at the tail to provide venom for the quill at the tip, right? At the tip of the tail, right? Now, it affects, it's really strong. It affects the nervous system, circulatory system almost immediately when it gets into the body. And the survival advantage is that they can just avoid predators so quickly. Right? Next, we have the efficient respiratory system. Now, this is a new concept. We didn't talk about this. Now, because the pork serpents need to stay undetected during hunting, they shouldn't move, right? Usually moving like breathing or things like that causes movement, causes like makes noise, which to certain animals they can detect at this actions and behaviors.
Yeah.
So the efficient respiratory system of the poker serpent allows it to just hold its breath for long periods of time.
Yeah.
So it can stay hidden, undetected, with no movement for a long period of time. Wait for the right time for the prey to move or get into the position, and when it's the right time, it immediately ambushes the prey, just kills it.
Yeah.
Without you even see it, or it just catches them off guard.
Yeah.
Almost immediately. Next one, we have the body temperature regulation. As we said, they're ectotherms, so they rely on the external temperature or environmental temperature to, control their bodily functions, for the enzymes to work, and things like that.
Yeah.
So what's the survival advantage with this? So because they're ectotherms, they don't need much food and they don't spend as much energy.
Yeah.
So that's really important in such a high competitive, like predatory environment.
Yeah.
So not to use and waste a lot of energy, and in some cases, food can be scarce. Prey can be scarce. So they need to be able to like have a way to not just waste their energy all the time. So that's the advantage with being ectothermic in those environments.
Yeah.
That's that. Next, we're going to talk about behavioral adaptations. Now, the porcu serpents usually thrive in the daytime, so they're diurnal, right? So it remains active during daytime to hunt. It uses the nighttime usually to seek shelter, to rest, usually. So the function is that by being active in daytime, they can more prey can be spotted. You can spot prey pretty easily, and there's more food availability uh, for them, right? They use their offensive mechanisms in that. That's not, but it also comes with a disadvantage.
What is it?
They can get spotted by predators.
Oh yeah.
They can get spotted by predators, of course.
Yeah.
This comes with a disadvantage. However, the evolution, right?
Yeah.
It seems that they can live better during the daytime.
Yeah.
Than during nighttime. Because the king cobras or the porcu serpents, porcu serpents that live during nighttime couldn't survive. Couldn't really just pass on their genes to the next generation of nocturnal genes. So the ones that live in daytime,
they thrive.
Majority of the porcu serpent population is now diurnal. That lives in the daytime. Okay. The second behavior adaptation, we talked about it a lot, is the ambush hunting, right? So he uses it in stealthy, cautious, silent ambush hunting. He mostly relies on his venomous tail or as backup on his venomous fangs.
Yeah.
And a survival advantage with this is that they can attack the prey very quickly, catch them off guard without the prey or the predator just reacting, right? Because the lightning speed of the venomous tail or their head bites, uh, just the just the animals can really react.
Yeah, they have a really fast reaction time.
Exactly, that's the thing. And the next behavioral adaptation is the barrel construction. I just talked about it, right? Now they construct barrels at the base of, again, I said trees. Now the function is that safe place for resting, nesting, reproduction, things like that. The survival advantage is that it's usually camouflaged. The entrance is camouflaged by the ground level trees, and it also retains moisture and humidity, which is perfect for their health.
Yeah.
So that's the thing. That's the other tail defense. The tail is also used for defense. So if there's jaguars or leopards attacking them,
it's like you were saying.
Yeah, we talked about it a lot. They get immediately.
They can attack it while moving away from it, so they can attack from behind while slithering away.
Exactly. However, all these good adaptations come with a disadvantage. Right? The porcupine characteristic of the porcu serpent is that when a predator attacks it, the quills will be left in the body of the predator. Right? That's how it is. So, it's kind of. Now the problem, it's good because it defends them, but it also comes with a downside. They must spend a significant amount of energy to regenerate these quills.
Yeah.
They generate pretty quickly, but it also requires a significant amount of energy.
Yeah.
Which is the problem. So usually after confrontations with predators, they usually stay inactive to retain energy instead of using it for hunting, they use it for their defensive mechanism regeneration, for their quill regeneration.
Yeah.
Quill regeneration. Yeah. And also another thing is that the barrel limitation. Due to their body structure is full of quills, right? It's first of all, the size of the barrel is kind of limited. So if they do find barrels that are not their size, then it's a problem. They must build a barrel from scratch, and it usually exposes them in the nature to predators. Yeah. You build it all.
And it takes time.
It takes time.
Takes energy.
Exactly. So that's the disadvantage that comes with it. These are the two main disadvantages, and this was all the information about habitats and where they live.
Antibiotics.